Welcome to Uncommon Sense, where we do our best to make it common again. I'm your host, Adrian Alquist, and today we have exciting news. The Archbishop in Iraq, Archbishop Warda, wants to start a Chesterton Academy there. And I am joined today with Laura Hassan, the Director of International Programs for the Society. And joining us again today is Andrew Youngblood, the Director of Curriculum and the Headmaster of Chesterton Koryezu, which is our online school. And how are you, Laura and Andrew? Laura, you go first.
Sure, we're good. Thank you so much for having us. It's great to be with you, Adrian.
Yeah, Andrew, how are you?
Great. It's fun to be back. I'm looking forward to talking and sharing all the exciting stuff that's happening in the network.
I know this is extremely exciting. I mean,
Crazy.
what are we never thought that we would be involved in a project like this, right?
I rib your dad. I'm like, it's really short-sighted that you didn't see this coming when 2007. It's like you didn't discuss the Iraq school in 2007 when you started the Chesterton Academy.
Yeah, forward thinking. Come on. Yeah, you had said that you'd never thought you would have gone to Iraq, right? Never made a trip to Iraq.
No.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the trip, and because you guys visited Archbishop Warda to see if this was possible. And yeah, I mean, just starting off the bat, how was it? How did it go?
I think Andrew should take the lead because he's much more entertaining.
Yeah, I'll try to. Yeah, so Andrew, you go first.
So you're absolutely right. I never thought that I'd go to Iraq. It just was never something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. So I never asked myself the question, I wonder if I'll like Iraq. And
right.
Gosh, I don't know if it was fair to say from the first moment we landed, because the first thing we did was a COVID test. So that was not a pleasant experience.
Right.
But very soon, if not that first night, then the next day, I realized I love Iraq and the people were wonderful. There was a whole bunch of, there were 7 of us on the trip. So 3 from Chesterton Academies. And there are other people, I'm sure we'll discuss that later. But we all talked about how many obstacles we had in getting to Iraq and how many people had warned us and told us their concerns or had dreams about our safety and just were really worried for our safety and that we shouldn't go and, this wasn't safe. So I didn't really have time to process and think about would I like Iraq? And right. I loved it. I mean, the people, the food, the area, yeah. The history, it was glorious. I can't say enough about Iraq. And I have to say, at least for where we were at and the people we were with, there was never a second of any day that I felt unsafe.
That's amazing. Laura, did you have a similar experience?
Yes. So Adrian and I had lived and worked in the Kurdish Republic of Iraq, which is a semi-autonomous zone in the north, in the summer of 2017 when ISIS fell.
Wow.
So I'd lived and worked there before, but it was great to return. Erbil is the capital of the Kurdish Republic of Iraq. It's a city to which many of the Christian, we call them Christian refugees, but they're really internally displaced people. They didn't cross an international border. They were displaced within their own country. So Erbil is the city where the Christian refugees and IDPs came when ISIS entered the Nineveh Plain, where the historic Christian villages have been thriving since about 300 AD. And so Erbil's Ankawa neighborhood, the Christian neighborhood, is just got a new feeling over the last 3.5, 4 years. Many more people, families who saw themselves as rooted in their villages that have now taken to urban life, and many people have immigrated. And one of the big reasons that we were invited by Archbishop Warda was that he really wants to make it possible for any Christian IDP family who wants to stay in Iraq to stay. And he knows that one of the most important ways to make families comfortable in their homeland is to make sure that their children have really great educational access.
Yeah,
access to really great education.
Yeah. Archbishop Warda sounds like an absolute beast. I mean, he sounds amazing. Andrew, you mentioned that he reminds you of someone. I mean, could you describe Archbishop Warda for me?
I can't do it well, but I mean, so we had gotten emails that so Archbishop Warda has started a university, and that's not even his biggest accomplishment by far. Like, he's done so many things there.
Yeah,
but one of them is that he started a Catholic university. It's the Catholic University of Erbil. And so we had been corresponding with the campus minister, maybe president of Catholic University of Erbil, about getting our visas and everything. And Father Danka was going to meet us at the airport along with the principal from the existing school where we are going to put the Chesterton Academy into place.
Mhm.
So we were expecting them, and we had a little bit of a delay getting through customs. So we get out, and Father Danka didn't look like I had seen in his pictures, and I did see this chain going around. So like there were clues that should have said, this is not Father Danka, this is the Archbishop, but I wasn't catching on to them. So I called him Father, and like, Father, thank you for meeting us. And he immediately, he's like, I'm an Archbishop. I mean, he's so funny and so gregarious. And when he said that, my first thought was, why are you meeting us at the airport? The Pope, who has never been to Iraq, is coming in 4 days. You have other things to do. But
right.
He really enjoyed, I think, being with us, showing off not so much his accomplishments, but his people, right? Like, he really has a heart for these people. And Laura, correct me on this, because this is probably not accurate, but I think a lot of Archbishop's ministry and vision is the result actually of what happened with ISIS. Because as Laura was saying, all of a sudden one day in 2014, all of these refugees, people who are fleeing other cities in Iraq, came to Erbil, and he had thousands of refugees in his city, and he felt called to take care of them. And he started these camps, and he got them out of camps as quickly as possible into housing, which I think was really, really key and really showed his organizational skills. And he was reaching out to organizations to help him. And through that event of getting these people situated and stabilized, he realized we need to provide them with jobs and education and healthcare. So that's why he started a university. That's why he started a hospital.
That's why he started too. Amazing.
Across the street from the cathedral it's not the largest hospital that I've ever seen, but it's one of the nicest I've ever seen. Wow. It's a converted mall. So it's got a total Zen feel to it. Like, it was very, very nice.
Yeah.
And the idea is that people will go through the university, get their medical degree or their education degree, their architecture degree, and then they can work in the hospitals, they can work in the schools. So he has this real vision of a self-sustaining model. And I think one of the key things about him and his leadership, and really being able to watch his leadership over the course of the week, was probably one of my biggest takeaways.
That really is localism in action, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And the key to it is he identifies people that share his vision, that he trusts 100%, and he just lets them go. And he's been so rewarded by that model of identifying people who have a heart for Christ, who are good at what they do, and share his vision. And it just happens. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he fell in love with Chesterton Schools. It's because we have the academic rigor that he needed for his local high school. That's what they needed, an effective high school that had strong caliber of academics. But really, I think the thing that solidified our relationship was that the central goal of the Chesterton Academies is to help the students fall in love with Christ. And that's his vision, right? So he has people who are ethnically Chaldean Catholic and identify very strongly with their Catholic faith, because of what they've been through in their community. But he wants to have them fall in love with Jesus even more. So a school program that's academically rigorous, that ticks all of his boxes for, the state and local government, academic rigor, SAT scores, but that really at its heart is all about helping these students fall in love with Christ. It was, it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I get that right, Laura, especially the timeline with his development as such a leader within the Catholic community in Iraq.
Yeah, we took to calling him a localist genius while we were there.
Localist genius, nice.
Clear that he thinks of himself, not just as an administrator, but as a father, if you will, to his community in Iraq. And he's made it very clear that he understands every family needs to make their own decision about whether or not they're going to stay, but he really wants to give them like a really a robust, welcoming infrastructure that will help them stay if they want to stay. So as Andrew was saying, I mean, it was really impressive. When I was living in Iraq a couple of years ago, there were still Christians living in the IDP camps, and he worked very hard, sometimes hand in hand with international agencies, to make sure that families could leave the camps and get into transitional housing, and then from there, make their leap to a more permanent situation, whether in Iraq or in another country. But in his effort to really help people stay in their homeland, he has established an incredible state-of-the-art hospital, I think with 5 or 6 operating theaters, OB ward. It's also, very welcoming. They live in a Muslim context, and so it has both a chapel and a mosque available to try to, help the community know that, whether you're a Christian or of another religion, you're welcome to receive high quality healthcare from the doctors and nurses there.
Yeah. So in spite of this Herculean task that it seems like starting at Chesterton in Iraq, after meeting Archbishop Warda, I assume you gained a certain peace of mind, and knowing all of his accomplishments, it makes the whole project seem a lot more feasible, wouldn't you say? I mean, and then you met with him to confirm that. How did the meeting go? How did the meetings go?
The meetings were kind of funny. I mean, essentially, he had picked us. It was less that we were vetting him and more that he was like, "Hey guys, I know that you're excellent at what you do, and now, and that you love, you have a real missionary zeal." And one-on-one, it was really almost as if he wanted to confirm through friendship that we were a good match for each other. And it was evident early on that it was a great match. The same interest in both excellence and evangelism.
Yeah, Andrew, you used a certain word to describe the whole trip. Do you remember what you said?
I don't know.
Anointed.
Oh yeah. So that's not a word that I usually use, right? But you were saying, was it hard, or do you, a Herculean task? This is, I mean, we have schools that we're helping in the United States that we have to put more effort into and more support than the one in Iraq. I mean, I didn't find anything Herculean about it. I think Laura's exactly correct. He has this vision and he has this ability to identify people. And I think if not the night that we arrived, definitely by the next day, he had kind of decided that we were his people. And there was nothing difficult about getting this done. And if you think about it, we're starting a Catholic high school in Kurdistan. So, I mean, you could imagine that there would, very reasonably be a lot of bureaucratic red tape, but everything went smoothly. We had basically 3 levels of, clearances that we had to get through. And the first was with the principal. We had to sit down and discuss the curriculum and see if we could come to an agreement. And, I thought that could be a 2-day long conversation. They had printed out the entire curriculum, 9 binders. They had read everything. It was like a 10-minute conversation. And then the rest of it was just like, we were friends by the time, by within 24 hours, we were all just friends. And in fact, the principal at one point, she's going to kill me for saying this, but she's like, we had gone on a trip later on in the week, and we were saying how much we loved it. It was just this amazing trip to visiting 2 4th century monasteries, 2 different 4th century monasteries built into these cliffs. It was an amazing day. And we were saying how much we liked it. And she goes, "Oh, good." And then she said something like, "I thought, I'm so glad you guys are here. I thought you were going to be bored." And I was like, "Oh no, we weren't bored at all." And then I think it was Laura, maybe it was Amy, who corrected me. He's like, "No, she said she thought we were going to be boring." And so, I mean, we had so much fun, and it was so productive. And I think that's so Chestertonian, isn't it? We laughed so hard with the Archbishop and with Hala and with all the other people. And it was such a blessing to meet the families. We met with the minister of Erbil, who basically gave us the green light within 10 minutes. And then we headed off in these high security cars with officials and security. And we went to the head ministry or the head parliament building for Kurdistan. And as Laura was explaining, so Kurdistan is a region. Is it fair to say that's semi-autonomous? Yeah,
Yeah.
within Iraq. So it's the northern part of Iraq. And we would go to the main government building, all these security people, and we're meeting with the Minister of Education for all of Erbil, for all of Kurdistan.
Wow.
And he approved the program within 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like that doesn't happen, right? Even in the United States, it's going to take a few months. We were expecting 12 to 18 months. It's all approved. It's all we're implementing, right? You know, as soon as we get the approval by all of the members, the formal approval by all the members, and everyone is sharing in our excitement that, you know, we're ready to go. It's ready to implement.
We are ready to go. That's why we're doing this podcast.
Right. And so I just didn't have any other word. It was more than that. It was blessed. It was like, you don't, sometimes you know that you're doing God's will, but like I had a real sense that I was meant to be there at that time doing that exact thing with these exact people. And that's why I said it just felt anointed. It was a very humbling and overwhelming experience.
That's great. Laura, you had mentioned that this is maybe different from your other international projects that you have worked on. And Andrew, verbalized why that is the case, but could you have something to add to that? Why is this different? And why is this such an important project?
Sure. Well, there were a couple things that stood out for me. I've worked in international education and child protection, education specifically, for about 10 years. And the meeting with the Minister of Education was very unique. From my experience, especially in the Middle East, it really takes a lot of time. It can take between 6 to sometimes 48 months to approve a curriculum through the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
And generally, the ministry will come back with their own revisions and additions, et cetera. So, I mean, the fact that our curriculum was approved within 24 hours, I think that actually tells you more about Archbishop Warda's existing relationship with the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
He is someone they trust. He is someone that they've partnered with well. He's someone who's known throughout the civil government structures for his willingness to work together, for common ends and common means with the civil actors. So, but it was really a surprise. I mean, I almost couldn't believe it. Kind of out of my professional experience with international education, but it was great. It was wonderful, and really the whole thing. I mean, I've worked for the U.S. government and for large international development agencies, and it's very unique. When you're working with directly with a local leader who's very entrepreneurial, who has a vision that's very precise, but who also is willing and able to delegate in mammoth ways to people that he sees that he shares a common ethos with. I mean, it's very interesting. So it's a lot more flexible. It's a lot more creative than other things that I've worked on before. But at the same time, it really is excellent. And I think we're hitting a high level of professionalism.
Amazing. Andrew, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, so the timeline was we were going back and forth in an email chain with someone who had pictures from the event. So when they sent us the pictures, they said, we're so excited that your program is approved. And I was showing it to Laura. We were talking. I was like, wait, did we just get approved? It wasn't the official approval. Like, we didn't get the letter in 24 hours, but there was an email and we were talking about it. I was like, that's not possible, right? Like that's crazy. But yeah, that's what happened. And then we got the official valid verification on that email saying, yeah, you've been officially approved.
Yeah, well, and it's surprising. You guys were talking about how difficult it was to just get into Iraq. You think that the whole process and everything would be even more difficult with the project, but that's flowed, beautifully. So what? But you guys still didn't get a lot of sleep, from what I heard. While you were there. I mean, so what were you guys busy with 24/7? Andrew, you go first.
Oh, you want me to? So we did our work, but like I was saying, it went so fast and so smooth that we really got a lot of time to spend visiting with the students. I spent a lot of time in the school talking with the students. I went into this situation not really. I knew that I didn't know the culture, and I didn't have an appreciation for all that the culture had to offer to us. And so I was going there to learn this, and I was so excited to have this exposure and this broadening of my horizons. And I was just so shocked. They're so immersed in an English American system already.
Oh,
They
right, right.
speak beautiful English. So, we were talking about like, how can we help them in that arena? And then, they're not going to be learning Latin like our students do. They'll be doing Arabic instead. So there are some really common sense modifications, but we were meeting with the students. We met with the parents. We were able to meet with. So another thing about Archbishop Warda is that he's not the type of archbishop that lives in this stuffy residence. He has
Yeah.
a really nice rectory that's very comfortable, and it's full of
It's homey.
it's so homey, and it's full of people that just share his vision and love him and want to be with him. He has this massive table, and it's full every day. And it's like priests and people who are there working, and it was so much fun to be there. When the Pope arrived in Iraq, he didn't come to Erbil first. He went into, I believe he flew into Baghdad first, correct? So when he arrived in Baghdad, we were in Archbishop's living room around the TV with him, the other delegation, which included a lot of people from Franciscan University of Steubenville, and we were just there hanging out with our friends, right? And
yeah.
It's one of those moments, like, I'm watching the Pope and this historic meeting land in Iraq. I'm in Iraq, and I'm here with the Archbishop of Erbil and other great people watching this event take place. So we spent a lot of time getting to know his priests, the Archbishop, and again, this is the localism, the genius of his ability to delegate. He said, a lot of people, when they organize a papal mass, they spend a lot of money on professional choirs and things. He's like, that's not what it's about, right? We're here to pray together. So he has 7 priests in his diocese. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Laura, but I think he has 7 priests in his diocese. One of them is a musician. He's like, you take care of all the music. And that's how he delegates, right? He's like, surprise me. And the music was beautiful. It was glorious. And he didn't spend a penny on it, right? So it's just those type of things. And so in the living room was the piano, and the priest was like putting the final touches on his compositions and stuff like that. So we spent time touring the school, Markadah School, meeting with the headmaster, Hala Warda, who's phenomenal. And then visiting the other schools in the area, the other parishes, meeting with the other delegations, seeing how we can all work together to fulfill this vision of the Archbishop, touring in Erbil. And then, so Erbil has it has a citadel, a castle in the middle of it that's 6,000 years old.
That's insane.
You can't even really imagine what that is. I mean, think about it. Abraham was 4,000 years ago, right? So basically, all the way back to King David, that's 3,000 years. And then you do that same amount of time again, and that's when the citadel of Erbil started. It's like, I can't even wrap my mind around how old it is, right? So we toured the citadel in Erbil. We went out and enjoyed the market. And then one day, and this is one of my favorite things that we did, we left Erbil, and we drove and we visited these 2 monasteries, Marmata and a monastery in Al-Kush, which is a Christian community close to Mosul. And that was very, very powerful. And we met the locals there. The first monastery that we went to, Marmata, is Syrian Orthodox, I think. And so, just meeting them, and we met some Yazidis. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Yazidis. Yeah, some of the local Yazidi community, and then we met the Christian community in Al-Kush, and to a person, it was just, they were amazing, lovely, wonderful, welcoming people. And so the one moment in our trip where it might have gotten scary, we were coming back from Al-Kush and our van died. So we had a big
I remember you telling
me. And it died. And so here we are. This is the unscheduled part of our trip, And I was like, oh, so the month before we got to Iraq, it was all about safety concerns. Have you thought about this? There's all these safety concerns. So when that happened, we were saying the rosary, the car dies, and we're like puttering to a stop. We turn off the highway and we putter to a stop.
It's a little Yazidi village where they happen to have.
Village, and we're like, oh, so this is the moment that people were like worried about, right? Back at home. Like, this is the moment that's unscripted. And, we did what we shouldn't do. We got out of the car and started walking around. Laura went dress shopping. Sorry, I'm going to call you out on that. She went dress shopping with Amy.
Staff member were like, "Ooh, you need."
They actually we all went to go get water because we didn't know how long we were going to be stranded, right? So we found a store. We were going to get water. Laura's much better at communicating with the locals than I am. So we were going to get water. They got distracted, went dress shopping. I bought water and baklava because it was a bakery.
That was good baklava.
It was good baklava. But like everyone we talked to, we were laughing with the people at the bakery. And I mean, they were like, oh, we've never met Americans before. And I mean, it was so wonderful and welcoming and homey. And of course, and this is just sort of the anointed part of the trip, our car had died right in front of a car wash.
Oh, wow.
And outside of the car wash, they had just finished washing a van that was identical to the one that we were in that just died. And our driver had to stay with his van because it was his car. So someone at the car wash was like, oh, I'll drive you back to Erbil. You just jump into the van. So here we are in this unscripted, possibly unsafe moment, eating baklava, laughing in a van that, with a new driver we'd never met who's driving us back to Erbil. And I think that that's sort of like a little metaphor for the entire trip.
Yeah, God had you.
And we were laughing because it was so much Our Lady's help right there. Oh, and we were laughing about how at the Chesterton conferences you have the cup of inconvenience.
Right. Yep.
So we wrote a whole long email to your dad saying we need a new award, the clutch of inconvenience, and that we think we should be in contention.
Yeah. Yeah, the cup, for those who don't know, the cup of inconvenience is awarded every year at our annual Chesterton conference to the person who had the most inconvenient experience happen at the conference before, and it says on it, Chesterton quote, an inconvenience is only an adventure wrongly considered.
And before we broke down, Amy was telling us about that. She was mentioning that story and how she had one year been in contention for the cup of inconvenience. Yep. So Amy was the third person in our party who was with us. Yeah. And so we had already been talking about that and laughing about that. So when the car died, it was funny,
Yeah. But to tie it back, that gives me the most confidence is the joy involved. And when you talk about Archbishop Warda's personality, it reminds me not only of my dad, and I'm biased, I don't know if you want to confirm that, but also of Marco Sammarini, the founder of the Chesterton School in Italy. And they all seem to have a similar, charism or theme. And it has to do with Christian joy. And that's our mission. We want to renew the world through Christian joy.
Archbishop Warda did remind me of your dad. And both your dad and Archbishop Warda remind me of GK Chesterton. Not that I've met GK Chesterton, but just the ability to laugh and have fun and, not take things too seriously. And at the same time, do amazing work and have such a heart for the people and a heart for Christ. Mm-hmm. It was just an honor.
What better way to evangelize and to educate than through joy? Because everyone wants that. Everyone wants to be happy and everyone wants to see that. And what a better way to attract people. Yeah.
So I have to share with you, Adrian, I don't know, maybe we can post this. We took a video. So we get to the stadium for the papal mass on Sunday. We get there. We were very, very honored. We had great seats. We were all really surprised. And then, we had met so many priests and people in the community that we knew so many people who were up on the dais, and we were saying hi to them and taking pictures. And then the whole arena quieted down. We said the rosary together. It was beautiful. And then there was like a half an hour after the rosary before the Pope arrived. And it was just one big celebration. The music was going and everyone was clapping and singing. And talk about joy. It's a joyful community.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Laura, did you want to add anything to that? Could you tell us about the papal experience? Yeah, papal visit.
The papal visit was a huge encouragement to the Iraqi Christian community and also to some of the other religious minorities like the Yazidis and the Kakais, who also kind of depend on a consortium of religious minorities in Iraq to have a more balanced conversation with the civil authorities. So it was really joyful. We were told that of course, there were about 10,000 seats in the stadium, but the Archbishop said, don't close the doors. So anybody who wanted to could come in. It didn't matter, where they were from or what their background was. Everybody was welcome. And it was a full stadium. It was very joyful. The Mass was beautiful. There was some traditional local music that was incorporated into the liturgy. It was very lovely, and some traditional costumes. And that joy that happened, that percolated up before the Mass, carried over into the post-Mass fun as well. It was kind of endearing. After the Pope had departed, he was, I think, giving a blessing to some of the priests, and people kind of rushed the Pope mobile, took selfies with it. There was a bunch of people who just went up to the altar, and it was a little questionable, and they were taking photos. There was a baby dressed in a Pope costume that got sat on the Pope's special throne, which was also not really okay.
How did they get the Pope mobile there? I'm curious. Did they have one there? That's cool.
Those are questions that are above our pay grade.
Yeah. That's
but amazing. It's there. We all got pictures with the Pope mobile.
Yeah, but it was sweet because at the very end, there was a group of young people. They were singing their traditional songs and dancing their traditional dances, from their different tribal areas in the country. There up on the altar, everybody was really honored and happy. It was very delightful.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful, and it seems to reflect well on the Catholic Church, which is great.
And one of those communities was the community in Al Kush that we had visited that one day. So we knew them, and we had been laughing that day because our tour guide, who was in Erbil at the Catholic University, is from Al Kush. So he's the one who brought us there. And he was telling us how his town has a great sense of pride. It even has its own song. And he was teaching us the song in the car.
Yeah.
And then after the Mass, there was a group, I'd say 50, 60 of them. I don't know, but they were
young people between ages 20 and 35, just shouting out the tribal songs from Al Kush.
Singing that song, and they were dancing, and just the ability to work with people like that. It's fantastic.
Wow, that's just great. We're running up on our time here, but I want to give you a chance to wrap up and say anything else you would like, Laura or Andrew.
Well, I think we're going to do a second one, and if we do a second one, then I just want to give a little bit of a snippet. What we haven't really mentioned, and really it's a huge omission, is we were there with a delegation from the Franciscan University of Steubenville, and just becoming friends with them and working together and collaborating with them has so much benefit, hopefully for Steubenville, definitely for Chesterton Schools Network, and for the school in Iraq. So I think we could easily do a whole nother session. And Laura, I don't know if you'd agree, but there's so much to say just about the group that we were with and how much fruit came out.
We're gonna have to have you back. Yeah, we're gonna have to have you two back. I'm glad I had both of you here. Laura, you were down to business, and Andrew, you painted a picture. It was nice to have both of that.
Yeah. Right.
So for those who want to learn more, go to chesterton.org/Iraq. You can also go to chestertonschoolsnetwork.org. And if you're feeling altruistic, please help us out and give to the Society or the Chesterton Schools Network, because we're going to need your help if we want this project to go underway and continue all along these lines. So thank you, Laura and Andrew, for being on the podcast. You're wonderful. And thank you all for listening. Until next time, help us to make uncommon sense more common.